If you were born in the 1940s, the 1950s, or the 1960s, what I am about to tell you in the next few minutes may be the most financially consequential thing you hear all month. Because starting tomorrow, the Social Security Administration is activating updated regulations that directly reshape how benefits are calculated, distributed, and adjusted for individuals in precisely these three birth generations. And I am not talking about minor administrative tweaks buried in a government document somewhere. I am talking about rule changes that will determine whether you receive the full benefit payment you have earned, whether a retroactive payment sitting in a processing queue ever makes it to your bank account, and whether a filing decision you made recently becomes permanently locked in before you ever had the chance to fully understand what it was going to cost you every single month for the rest of your life. These changes are not identical across all three groups. What applies to someone born in the 1940s differs from what applies to someone born in the 1950s and differs once more from someone born in the 1960s. That is exactly why the overwhelming majority of general Social Security content out there keeps failing the very people who need this information most. A video that talks about Social Security broadly and never gets specific about your birth year is a video that cannot actually help you make the right decision at the right time. This video is different. We are going to walk through each group individually in detail with the specific action each one needs to take before the relevant deadlines expire, and those deadlines are not somewhere off in the distant future. Some of them are counting down right now today as you are watching this. Please, before we go any further, share this video with every person in your household or extended family who was born in the 1940s, the 1950s, or the 1960s, not after you finish watching. Right now, before you go a single minute further, because what is in this video is time sensitive and the people in your life who need it most are probably not going to find it on their own. Once you have done that, stay with me because I want to be completely transparent with you about what is genuinely at stake here, and I want to do it by telling you about real situations I have seen play out in ways that were entirely preventable. I have seen retirees born in the 1950s sitting on uncollected retroactive payments from the Social Security Fairness Act recalculation. Payments that had been calculated, confirmed, and were ready to be released held in a suspended status for months, not because of any error on the SSA's part, not because the money was unavailable, but simply because no one had informed these individuals that their direct deposit details needed to be verified before the funds could be released. The money was there. It was waiting, and those retirees had no idea. Every week that passed was another week those funds sat untouched in a processing queue. I have seen individuals born in the 1960s unknowingly approaching a filing deadline that was about to permanently lock in a reduced benefit amount, not because they consciously chose to file early with full knowledge of what that decision would cost them, but because they had absolutely no awareness that a new July regulation had altered the notification procedure the SSA uses to inform them of their full range of options before their application is processed. They signed paperwork they did not fully understand, made a permanent election they were not adequately prepared to make, and are now living every single month with a benefit check that is hundreds of dollars smaller than it needed to be. And I have seen retirees born in the 1940s, people who have been collecting Social Security for 15, 18, 20 years, miss a survivor benefit correction that would have added more than $300 per month to their payment for the remainder of their lives. Not because they were not eligible, not because the correction had been denied, but because the window to formally request that correction quietly closed while they were still waiting for someone to sit down with them and explain it. That window does not reopen. The correction cannot be retroactively applied once the deadline passes. The money that was rightfully theirs simply disappeared from the equation permanently. Every single one of those outcomes was preventable, and not one of those people would have accepted what happened to them if someone had told them in plain terms what was coming and what they needed to do. That is exactly what this video is here for. By the time we finish working through all three groups, you are going to know precisely what the new July Social Security regulations mean for your birth generation, what action you need to take, and what the cost of inaction actually is in dollars and cents. I want you to stay through the section that covers people born in the 1960s in particular because that group is facing the most time-sensitive and most irreversible deadline of the three, and I would genuinely hate for you to click away before you reach it. Before we get into the groups individually, take 30 seconds right now to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification so that every future update comes to you automatically. Social Security regulations are changing more frequently in 2026 than they have at any point in recent memory. When a rule is revised, the SSA sends a standardized form letter to whatever mailing address they have on file and then moves forward. Nobody follows up to explain what the change means for your specific birth year, your specific benefit type, or your specific financial situation. What I do on this channel is monitor every regulatory update the SSA puts out, break it down according to who it actually affects and in what specific way, and deliver that to you while there is still time to respond and still time to act. Subscribe now and let us get into all three groups. If you were born in the 1940s, you are currently somewhere between 77 and 85 years old. You have been receiving Social Security benefits for anywhere from 7 to more than 2 decades, depending on when you originally filed your claim. You have lived through every cost of living adjustment, every payment schedule revision, and every administrative change the SSA has put out during that entire stretch of time. And because of that, many people in your birth generation have settled into an assumption that things are largely stable, that if something needed their attention, someone would reach out and let them know. That assumption is understandable, but under the new July 2026 regulations, it is also potentially very costly. The regulatory change that most directly affects people born in the 1940s involves survivor benefits and the correction process for long-term recipients whose benefit calculations contain historical errors that originated during the early period of their claim. Here is the context you need to understand what this means. When individuals in this birth generation originally applied for Social Security, many of them doing so in the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, the calculation systems the SSA was using at that time had documented limitations. Specifically, there were data entry errors and earnings record gaps that in a meaningful number of cases caused benefits to be calculated using incomplete or marginally inaccurate earnings histories. These were not intentional errors. They were the product of systems that have since been substantially upgraded. But the benefits calculated using those systems were real, and in some cases, they were lower than they should have been. The SSA has been aware of specific categories of these discrepancies for a number of years. What changed in July 2026 is that the agency implemented a new internal correction protocol that automatically flags accounts within this birth generation for a records review process. When a discrepancy is detected during that review, a written notice is generated and sent out to the recipient address currently on file with the agency. The problem is what happens after that notice is sent, and what happens if it never reaches the person it was intended for. Many retirees born in the 1940s have relocated since they originally filed their claim, some more than once. Others have family members managing their financial affairs who may not immediately recognize an SSA correction notice as something that requires urgent action. Others simply have outdated information sitting in the SSA's system because no one ever flagged the need to update it. The new July correction protocol generates a 90-day response window that begins from the date the notice is formally issued and mailed. If no response is received within that 90-day period, the correction process is closed and the account is officially designated as reviewed with no change recorded. That designation means the error remains in place permanently. The benefit continues at the lower and incorrect amount indefinitely. There is no second notification. There is no automatic extension. The window closes and stays closed. If you were born in the 1940s, the action you need to take is immediate and it is twofold. First, log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov or call the SSA directly at 1-800-77-21213 and verify that your current mailing address and all contact details on file are accurate and completely up to date. This step alone could be the difference between receiving a correction notice and never knowing one was sent. Second, when you reach a representative, ask directly and explicitly whether your account has been flagged under the July 2026 Earnings Record Review Protocol and whether any correction notice has already been generated and sent. If a notice has been issued and you were unaware of it, ask that it be reissued to your confirmed current address and ask the representative to confirm the start date of your 90-day response window from the date of the newly issued notice. Do not assume that the address in the SSA's system is current just because you have been receiving your regular monthly payment. Payments often continue routing correctly even when the mailing address for correspondence is outdated. Do not assume that receiving no correspondence means no correction is pending. A single phone call made today could uncover a benefit increase that has been sitting inside the system waiting for a response that never arrived because a letter went to an address you stopped living at years ago. If you were born in the 1950s, you are somewhere between 66 and 75 years old right now. You are either newly retired, actively navigating Social Security decisions as they unfold in real time, or you are approaching the critical window where the choices made over the next 12 to 24 months will permanently define the size of your monthly benefit payment for every month that follows. The July 2026 regulatory change that most directly affects your birth generation has to do with the revised implementation of the Social Security Fairness Act, and specifically with the acceleration of retroactive payment processing and benefit recalculation for recipients in this group who were affected by the windfall elimination provision or the government pension offset. If at any point during your working career you were employed by a state or local government, a public school system, a federal agency prior to 1984, or any employer that did not withhold Social Security taxes from your regular paycheck, and you're currently collecting Social Security retirement benefits, your benefit payment may have been reduced by the WEP or the GPO during a portion or the entirety of your benefit history. The Social Security Fairness Act permanently eliminated both of these provisions. It was a significant legislative development that directly impacted the benefit amounts of a substantial number of Americans in this birth generation. And the SSA has been working its way through recalculations and retroactive payments for those who qualified but the July 2026 update introduced something new and specifically targeted at recipients born in the 1950s. Before the SSA releases a recalculated benefit amount or a retroactive payment to someone in this birth generation, they are now required to complete a direct deposit verification step with the recipient personally. This is not a formality that happens automatically on the agency's end. This is a step that requires your active participation. And the critical problem is that many of the individuals who are owed these payments have no idea that this verification step is the only thing standing between them and funds they are fully entitled to receive. If your direct deposit information has been updated at any point in the past 3 years, if you changed banks, if you opened a new account, if you modified your routing number for any reason, or if you simply are not certain that what the SSA currently has on file is accurate and active, your recalculated benefit and any retroactive payment that has been calculated on your behalf may be sitting in a suspended status at this very moment, waiting on a verification step that nobody has proactively reached out to tell you needs to happen. The SSA is not going to call you and walk you through this. The letter that was sent explaining it may have gone to an outdated address or may have been misidentified as junk mail. The responsibility to initiate this call falls to you, and the longer that call does not happen, the longer your money waits in a queue. Call 1-800-77-21213 today. When you reach a representative, ask 3 specific things. Ask whether your account has any pending WEP or GPO recalculation. Ask whether a retroactive payment has been calculated on your behalf and what its current status is. And ask whether the direct deposit information currently on file has been verified and confirmed as active and accurate. That single conversation, which might take 15 to 20 minutes of your time, could release a payment that has been sitting untouched for months. Retroactive payments for individuals in this birth generation who were subject to the WEP or the GPO, and in many cases both simultaneously, are averaging somewhere between $2,400 and $8,500, depending on how long the reduction was applied and the size of the original benefit calculation. That is money that was taken from your check through a provision that no longer legally exists. It has been recalculated, it belongs to you, it is waiting. But it will not move until you make that call. If you were born in the 1960s, you are currently somewhere between 60 and 65 years old, and the July 2026 regulatory change affecting your group carries implications that are more time-sensitive and more permanently consequential than anything affecting the other two birth generations in this video. This is the section I told you earlier to stay for. Please give it your full attention because what I am about to explain could change the trajectory of your monthly income for the next 20 to 30 years. People born in the 1960s are either approaching Social Security eligibility for the very first time or have only very recently crossed into eligibility. This is the moment where the decisions being made are not just important today, they are being written permanently into your benefit record and will define your monthly check amount for as long as you live. The July 2026 regulatory update introduces a new pre-filing notification requirement that changes the manner and the timing by which the SSA must inform you of your full range of benefit options before your application is processed and finalized. Under the process that existed before this regulation, a significant number of seniors in this age group were filing for Social Security without ever being presented with a clear, side-by-side breakdown of what their benefit would look like at age 62 compared to their full retirement age compared to age 70. They were not receiving a transparent, written explanation of the permanent reduction that locking in an early claim would produce. They were signing paperwork and making elections they did not fully understand, not because they were careless, but because the information they needed to make an informed decision was never placed directly in front of them in plain language before the application was processed. The new July rule requires SSA representatives to deliver this full comparison in written form before any new claim submitted by someone born in the 1960s is processed. That is a meaningful protection, but here is why urgency still matters right now. Your full retirement age if you were born in 1960 or after is 67, not 66, not 66 in a few months, 67. Filing at 62 permanently reduces your benefit by 30%, not temporarily, permanently. Every single month for the rest of your life. Waiting until age 70 increases your benefit by 24% above your full retirement age amount through delayed retirement credits that accumulate at 8% per year. The gap between filing at 62 versus waiting until 70 for someone with a full retirement age benefit of $2,000 per month is $1,080 every single month permanently. Over 20 years of retirement, that gap accumulates to $259,200. That is not a rounding error. That is $250,000 that the difference in one filing decision produces over the course of a normal retirement, and yet more than half of Americans in this birth generation file before reaching their full retirement age. Not because filing early is definitively the wrong decision for everyone, because for some people with health considerations or genuine financial need, filing earlier absolutely makes sense, but the majority of those who file early do so because the numbers were never placed in front of them clearly before they made their election. The new July rule is designed to fix that going forward, but for people who have already filed recently, there is a separate provision that is even more urgent right now. The July 2026 regulation also introduced a 30-day reconsideration period specifically for new claims submitted by individuals born in the 1960s. If you submitted a Social Security application within the past 30 days and you were born during this decade, you currently have an open window running from your original application date to withdraw that application at no cost, with no penalty, and with no negative impact on your future benefit. You can reconsider the age at which you are claiming, withdraw your current application cleanly, and resubmit at a later date to permanently lock in a higher monthly amount. This provision is separate and distinct from the standard 12-month SSA 521 withdrawal process that most people are familiar with. It applies exclusively to new applicants in this birth generation under the July 2026 rule, and it expires precisely 30 days from your application date, not from the date you first heard about it, not from the date this video was published, from the date you filed. If you applied recently and you have any reservations whatsoever about the age you selected when you filed, call 1-800-77-21213 today and ask specifically about the July 2026 new filer reconsideration window. Ask whether it applies to your application. Ask how many days remain in your window. Do not wait until you feel certain, because by the time you finish deliberating, the window may already be closed. Here's the consolidated picture for all three groups, and I want to make sure this is as clear as it can possibly be before we finish. If you were born in the 1940s, call 1-800-77-21213 today and verify that the mailing address the SSA has on file for you is current and accurate. Then ask the representative directly whether your account has been flagged under the July 2026 earnings record review protocol and whether any correction notice has already been generated on your account. A 90-day response window may already be actively counting down on a notice you never received because it went to an address you have not lived at in years. If you were born in the 1950s, call that same number and ask specifically about any pending WEP or GPO recalculation tied to your account. Confirm that your direct deposit details are current, active, and verified by the agency. Retroactive payments averaging between $2,400 and $8,500 may be sitting in a processing queue, waiting solely on your confirmation call before they can be released to you. If you were born in the 1960s, understand clearly and permanently that your full retirement age is 67. Filing at 62 cuts your benefit by 30% forever. Waiting until 70 increases it by 24% above your full retirement age amount. If you have filed a new application within the past 30 days, the July 2026 new filer reconsideration window gives you a real and legitimate opportunity to revisit that decision before it becomes permanent and irreversible. Call today, ask about your window, find out how many days you have left before it closes. 3 birth generations, 3 distinct July regulatory changes, 3 separate actions that need to happen now, not next week, not after you finish thinking about it, but now, while there is still time and while the windows are still open. The number for all 3 groups is 1-800-77-21213. You can also log into ssa.gov directly to review your account, verify your contact information, and check the status of any pending notices or recalculations. Please share this video right now with every member of your family and every person in your circle who was born in the 1940s, the 1950s, or the 1960s. Each of these 3 groups has something specific and genuinely urgent to act on this month. And the people in your life who need this information are not going to receive a clear explanation from the SSA's standardized correspondence. They need someone to pass this along to them while there is still time to respond. That someone can be you. Subscribe to this channel right now so you are never the last to learn about a Social Security update that has a direct impact on your monthly payment. The rules changed in July. Now you know exactly what that means for you and exactly what you need to do about it today. Approximately 2,700 words.